like to open up the floor for anyone here that may have questions. If there aren't any questions, I have a bunch of my own questions I can ask. So yeah, if you feel comfortable, just raise your hand and just let us know whether your question is for Tim or for Cynthia or for both. We can also let them both speak on things. So yes.
Question for Cynthia. Yeah, what is it that you folks do invest in? I know you mentioned maybe some like small local businesses, but just wondering, what you folks are invested in.
So sorry, I'm just going to repeat that just so that we have it on the recording. So the question was for Cynthia, and the question was, what is the Atlantic Edge Credit Union invested in?
So a lot of our investments, so our term deposits, RSPs, and all that stuff, that's all local within our branch, and it stays in our community. So the money that you guys bring into, because we're small, like we don't have billions of dollars, right? But the money that comes in the form of RSPs, term deposits, checking and savings, we take it in today, tomorrow we put it out in mortgages. So we're investing right back in the community, right? It's our members' money that we're taking in, and we're passing it over to the next member who's looking to borrow. So it's pretty, it's pretty straightforward. We do, with our excess liquidity, we would invest some of it in form term deposits with our partner, kind of like a service organization out of Halifax, and they oversee all Atlantic credit unions. And there's 38 Atlantic credit unions now, because again, with the amalgamations and downsizing in that regard, we're down to 38. So if we have excess cash that we cannot put out the door in loans and mortgages today, we would invest it with Atlantic Central. And they in turn then lend that out to other credit unions who might be needing cash within the Atlantic. It stays within the Atlantic. Now, we have a wealth division, and you might have seen the signs around CUFM, Credit Union Financial Management. And Credit Union Financial Management, again, is Atlantic-wide. But we have our own representation, our own reps, insurance reps, mutual fund reps, and the like in our provinces. We're actually located here in the city. And they have a suite of products and services that they make available to our members. And I can't speak to the intricacies of those because, first of all, I'm not allowed because I'm not a mutual fund specialist. But we do have a suite of what we call ethical funds that I can say to you. And you've probably heard of them as well. It's about ethical investing, right? Now, if you wanted to buy stocks, bonds, and whatever in businesses, you as a member, you could do that because we have IROC licensed reps within the CUFM division. But for members buying mutual funds, they certainly have the option to invest in ethical funds, and it's all the things that banks are not.
Great, thank you. So to clarify, I just want to follow up a little bit about that because I've heard this question coming from other group members. So specifically when it comes to like Palestine, a lot of folks are like, we don't want a cent of our money going to these weapons that are killing people. So, and I guess this is kind of a question for Tim as well, like, because I'm confused about this. So there's a chance that there's still a small portion of the money that is invested in things like that, but comparatively to the banks, it's so much less that it's still worth it? Or can you say for sure that it's 0% is invested in these types of things?
I would not say it is at zero, but it is a very, very small percentage because, of course, for our members that are buying mutual funds, I only know so much about it. We only have so much control over the mutual funds because it's kind of like an onion, right? You peel back the layers and you're investing in this group who's investing in another group who's investing in another group.
Right.
So, it's not something that we consciously do. We're well aware, as far as we can tell, with the depth that we have, we're well aware of where our money goes and where it comes from.
Gotcha.
Right? So to say to you with 100% certainty would be
Got
a
it.
little bit. I'm not going to sit here and say that.
Sure.
Because I can't.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Tim, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, and obviously it's tricky here. So I think it's really important to understand sort of two different dimensions. That there's, when we talk about deposits and how using that fractional reserve system in terms of the loan portfolio. And that's where, you know, I would fully agree that I think it's next to zero, or like almost certainly zero, is going towards those companies. When it comes to mutual funds, I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but you know, I've done a lot of research. I know the sort of the mutual fund options that are available. A lot of even the ones that are labeled as socially responsible do not go far enough. As it relates to Palestine, again, it's very tricky because, you know, although they will have what we call negative screens or exclusions around explicitly things like military companies, that's very common. But almost every single mutual fund that is going to be offered is going to have exposure to the banks, who, as we know, have exposure to military companies. So this notion of indirect investments is very, very challenging to get around. This is where, you know, it really depends on kind of how you want to do it. There is, you know, it's very easy to take a small step with your investments that'll get you sort of like 90–95% of the way there. However, if someone does want to be like really, you know, squeaky clean as it relates to their investments with a fine-tooth comb, you know, that's where I kind of have my specialty, where I help folks do that. It is more like basically really the only path is DIY investing, so do it yourself. I like using things called ETFs, exchange traded funds, instead of mutual funds. These are very similar to mutual funds, but they're a lot cheaper. The fees are a lot lower, but you do have to learn how to buy them yourselves. And they are much more transparent. That when I look at the mutual funds, it's really challenging to get the full list of holdings inside of mutual funds. Whereas with ETFs, it's usually a couple clicks and I can see the full list. From there, you know, it really is, again, it's sort of this sort of varying degrees of awesome that, you know, that it's very easy for us to sort of do less evil. And it might not be perfectly clean, but it's certainly, you know, better than the standard options. And we can do that in a way where we're not sacrificing returns one iota, and that's fine. It's very easy to do. But if we want to get, like Zoe, I heard you say not one penny, and so when I hear that, and but this is also where, you know, a big part of my job, you know, as a financial planner when I'm working with activists, is to say, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I really don't want you to insist on perfection. If that is your insistence, we can do it, but there are going to be trade-offs, and my job is here to help you understand what those trade-offs are and what it means, and maybe it's more complexity, or there's less diversification, or, you know, like, we can talk through that. But, you know, for most people, what I want you to do is go with, like, the easiest, simple option that gets you most of the way there. But that is where, you know, it is a little bit tricky. You know, I know there's some fine folks who, you know, sort of at the credit union and with CU Financial Management, like I know them well, but I also know that they often are part of something called, there's a Viso Wealth Management, and NEI mutual funds are part of it. And I will say I've had a lot of folks be very disappointed when they're sort of sold socially responsible mutual funds. And when I sit down with them and we open it up and we see what's actually in there, they're not always happy, especially for the fees that they're paying. So it's the type of thing where, to me, it's very simple when it comes to your deposits, and I think that's a great step. When it comes to your investments, this is where I'm happy to have a further conversation about that, but it does get much, much more complicated, you know, especially if you are looking for that sort of squeaky clean approach.
And I'll just add to that, Tim, for our members that are looking for that squeaky clean approach, we would tend to then move forward with ethical fund recommendations, because they are the ones with like the smallest investment. Again, you know, they all have a little bit of it in there, but our ethical funds are the ones that we would recommend. Now, if we have members who are okay with him doing more, or having more, or, you know, not being as caught up in the ethical fund investing. We have salespeople who are licensed to sell mutual funds and are IROC licensed and that kind of thing. And if someone is not hung up on the ethical investing, then they can get any product that they want, but you can get it during the market. But for our members who are very conscious of that, you know, we would lean towards ethical funds, and I guess, you know, hence the name, right? They're called
Sure.
ethical funds, so.
Thank you, and I just, I just want to reiterate, just based on what you're both saying, like, I think that was such a great quote, Tim, that, what did you say? You said, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. That's so important because, and that's kind of the point behind our pledge that we're offering, is like, any dollar that isn't in your banking, in a big bank's checking account, is a dollar that's not being used 20-fold to support the arms industry and fossil fuels and all this stuff. So any step that you take is making a difference. Okay, so was there another question that I saw? Yes, please.
Regarding registered accounts like TFSAs, FHSAs, do you offer them?
Yep.
And what is the process of transferring from the big bank to credit union with those accounts?
Sorry, I'm just going to repeat it just for the recording. So the question was TFSAs, and what was the other one?
First home savings.
FHSA, RSPs, like.
Okay, RRSPs, TFSAs. Do credit unions offer these things, and was there a follow-up to that?
Yes,
And
How do you move it?
What's the process of transferring those accounts?
What's the process of transferring? Thank you. Please.
It's simple. You know, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to do it, but it is simple. So it depends on where you're. So let's just be very hypothetical here, and let's just say you have RSPs or whichever product, and it's at Scotiabank as an example.
Okay.
The first thing you need to do, yes, the first thing you need to do is determine renewal dates, because a lot will be locked in for like a 3-year, 2-year, 5-year term. Sometimes it's invariable, that's easy, but if it's locked in, then chances are they're not going to let you transfer it until your term is up. Okay, so you need to identify the renewal dates. And if you know that there's a renewal date coming up, let's just say it's June 1st. You open up your account with the credit union, and the paperwork is done in our office. You bring in your renewal notice, or any information you have about the contract or about the actual deposit, and then someone in our office will do the paperwork requesting the transfer, and you sign the documents. We send it out to Scotiabank. The check comes to us. We deposit it. When it comes in, we reach out to you and say, hey, we have your RSP just showed up. You want to talk about rates, or you want to come in for an appointment, talk about rates and terms and whatever, and then we just transfer it straight over into another RSP. It's simple. So, it's very easy. It just needs to be done around your maturity dates, unless it's an invariable. If it's an invariable and an open term, you can just do it whenever you want to do it. Just got to get your account open first, right? That's credit union. And then someone in the branch would get the paperwork started for you. We would need your signature to send it out to Scotiabank, and we would generally send that maybe 6 weeks or so before the renewal date, and then it gives them lots of notice, and then they would send us a check when it matures.
Thank you.
It's easy.
Tim, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great question. So when it comes to registered accounts, again, this gets into the world of investments, rather than, start with a checking account and then your emergency fund, your savings account. When it comes to investments, I'm a big proponent of DIY investing, do-it-yourself investing. I know it sounds scary and people are like, oh, but it's really very, very, very simple. So credit unions do have access to software called Qtrade. So Qtrade is a great DIY investing platform. I also have clients that use other independent ones. So Questrade is one. Well, Simple is another very popular online trading platform. And this would, again, it really depends on sort of how much control you want to have over your investments. But if you are willing to learn a little bit, DIY is very popular these days. And that basically the process there is very similar. What you want to do is open up the accounts at your new institution. So let's say you choose Qtrade, you want to keep it all in the credit union system. So you open up your Qtrade accounts, you open up your RSP, your TFSA, your FHSA, maybe an unregistered account if you're lucky enough to have all of those tax shelters maxed out. So you want to open those accounts first, and then what we do is do a transfer request for them. And we do that with your receiving institution. Okay, so this example, let's say we're going Scotiabank's the old one, Q-Trade is the new one. We open up all the accounts at Q-Trade. We then talk to Q-Trade, fill out paperwork with Q-Trade, such that they will then request or demand that Scotiabank move everything over for you. This is where, having an advisor can be really helpful, or having for me as a financial planner where, I'm not necessarily selling any product, I can still help you, figure out that process, that there are different methods. You can do what's called all in kind, which is keeping your investments as is and moving them over. So when they arrive, they'll stay in the same investments, or you can move it all in cash so that it all gets moved over as cash and is ready for you to invest when it arrives. It does take some time. Crystal's point that there are always like a couple weeks in there after you submit the paperwork where you're like, oh no, like my money's in limbo. But like, don't worry about it. It just takes a couple weeks to arrive. And then once it's in the new account, then it's ready to go to be invested however you see it.
Okay.
Cool.
So just a follow-up. So I don't need to liquidate like all my ETFs and stuff. Like I can just transfer that over. I don't need to turn it all into cash, I guess.
I'm not sure if you heard that, Tim. It's a follow-up, just asking, so you don't need to liquidate all the ETFs, or what was it?
Stocks, whatever. Like,
Or
you don't
stocks.
have to turn it all into cash.
You don't have to turn it all into cash?
Correct. That's correct. You can do what's called an in-kind transfer. Now, this does get a little bit dicey with mutual funds because not all online brokers can hold all mutual funds, but every online broker can hold all stocks and all ETFs. So if you've currently got a stock or ETF portfolio, it's very easy to move that in kind. And that way it just gets moved over as is. Nothing gets bought, nothing gets sold. This is especially important if you have one of those unregistered or taxable accounts, because moving your investments, if you do sell everything first, that is what we call a taxable event. So again, this is where a little bit of planning can go a long way. It's hard to sort of give general advice to everyone. This is where it does make sense to sit down with someone to kind of review, to make sure that you know what your options are. But absolutely, you can transfer things in kind.
And if you're transferring, and I'll just add one more thing, if you want to transfer an RSP from a financial Scotiabank, again, as an example, to a credit union, it just transfers. The RSP just transfers. There's no tax implications, right? It just stays in the RSP vehicle and just becomes an RSP at the credit union as opposed to an RSP at the bank. So there's no tax implications to pay that.
Great. Great to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, okay, we've got a bunch of questions. This is so great. I'm just going to ask you first,
I have a question.
yeah, okay, yeah, please.
So this is one for you. Some of you are students. I've lived in 5 cities in the past 5 years. What do people like me just move in your city, go to another province to a new, like move everything to a new language, and what do you do?
So, I'm sorry, this is annoying, but I have to do it. So the question is, for folks, especially like students who are moving province to province within maybe the span of a few years, since credit unions are locally focused, what do you suggest? I guess this is a question mainly for Tim, but also for yourself. I'm going to ask my first question, which is sort of connected to that, which is, what do I do if I'm traveling internationally? Say I'm with the AECU and I'm in London, England. What do I do? So yeah, maybe Tim, maybe you can start, and then I'll give the floor to you, Cynthia.
Okay, perfect. So it's important to understand, and Crystal, by all means, correct me if I've got this wrong, but my understanding is that you must be a resident of that province at that time to open an account. You do not have to close that account if you leave the province.
That's right.
Now, if you move and it's like kind of a good faith thing, like you're not going to be around your branches. So if you're like, Tim, I'm moving to Toronto and I'm, pursuing my career as an actor and I'm going to be there, full time, and that's my goal is to move my whole life there, then certainly, yeah, like it makes sense, like open up a new credit union account, move everything over, do the process I just described to like open up a new account there. However, you don't have to, as long as you're comfortable using online services and using the app and using other credit union ATMs, You know, I have clients who have moved across the country and they stay with their credit union from their home province, right? So again, you don't have to, it's only if you needed access to a branch, you know, for whatever reason would I suggest actually opening up a new account and doing it that way. And then, so to answer your question, when it comes to international, oh my goodness, so the problem with international stuff is fees. That if you've ever had to use an international ATM, oh my goodness, they ding you through the roof. And then as well, even whenever you use different currencies, they're always going to ding you on currency exchange fees. Right? So if you use your credit card, if I go to Japan and tap my Visa card, it'll work there, Visa is accepted there. But I'm paying Japanese yen, they're going to charge me Canadian dollars, and they're going to charge me like, it's usually about 2.5%. So the suggestion that I have for traveling is twofold. Number one, because I like cash. Like I'm someone, my wife, it drives her a little bit nuts, but I'm someone, I like cash. So I'll go to a little hole in the wall currency exchange place. You can certainly do it at the credit union, but you know, I like a little hole in the wall place. I find I can get the best exchange rate there. And I like to actually have some Japanese yen in my pocket, right, when I'm traveling. And then I use an app called Wise, W-I-S-E, for travel. This allows me to set up basically any currency pretty much around the world. I deposit Canadian dollars from my credit union into the Wise app. I then convert it into whatever currency at a much more reasonable exchange rate. And then I can tap there. And it's essentially like a prepaid Visa card. So, you know, my wife, she's got a travel credit card that she really likes, that, you know, she feels more comfortable having that. That is a good thing, especially for hotels. Like sometimes they do require like an extra credit card. It's not a bad idea, you know, certainly to have an international credit card if you do a lot of it. But otherwise, what I would suggest is, you know, keep your local credit union account, download that Wise app, get some cash for wherever you're going. And then, you know, for me, between cash and the Wise app, you know, I cover about, you know, 99% of situations that I run into.
We have members, we have a member who lives in Germany, I think of one that I know who lives in Germany. We have a couple that live in London. We have one member that left Newfoundland and went to work in the Cayman Islands. And I think he might have been in the Cayman Islands for 7 or 8 years for work purposes, and then left and moved to Ontario, and is living in Ontario now, probably another 10 years or close, and still does every bit of their banking with, and that's just a few that I know of, that I can think of, but they do every bit of their banking with us, because again, to Tim's point, if you're okay with using an app to do a lot of the things that you like to do, it's so easy. And if you can't do it on the app, it's a phone call. And you know, they generally have relationships with someone in their branch, and they can call in and they need a loan, and we can send loan documents out through DocuSign, and it really is, it's simple. Yeah. So you know, you don't need to close your account. You can, no matter where you live, you have to be a resident of the province to open up your account, but once you are a member, you're always a member as long as you want to remain a member. And in terms of the travel, the overseas, there's not anything more that I can say,
Right.
other than what Tim said about that. That is the way that it is, and it is painful. What we have found, and it's not in 100% of the cases, but in some cases, we find that using your credit card in some of these countries or with some of these currencies, sometimes you tend to get a little bit of a better exchange rate than if you were buying currency at the branch, or you know, at a currency location somewhere. But that's not always the case. And again, it depends, because you know the currency exchange rates change by the hour some days, right? So, but what we do say to our members sometimes, you know, depending on where they're going, you might want to rely on your credit card a little bit more, maybe for some of these transactions. Monitor, you know, if you can, the rates, but sometimes the rates on the cards are better.
Right. Cool. Thank you. There was another question. Was there? Yeah, please.
I mentioned like being one member means you get one vote. I'm just wondering like what mechanisms exist to use those votes? Like what are members like voting on?
So we have our credit union is run by a volunteer board of directors. We have 10 directors on our board who are all members of the credit union. And so every year we have three directors. This year our board is going to go down to 9 because of the amalgamation. And there was 3 credit unions coming together. We increased the size of the board for a few years, but we want to get back to 9. So in January we put out a call for nominations. So once we get through the first few years of the amalgamation, we'll have 3 board members with terms up every year, right? So it revolves. And so we'll put out a call for nominations in January for 3 board members. And we'll do biographies and all the details. There'll be dates where nominations have to be in, there's a deadline, and then there will be an online voting. So anybody that's a member in good standing can vote for the board members who they would like to have on board. And anyone that's a member can run. There's no requirements to say, you have to have X number of dollars or X number of business with credit. There's nothing like that. If you are a member in good standing, as long as you are the age of 19 and older, you can run for the board. So you get to vote and decide who you would like to have sitting at the board and make decisions on behalf of your credit union. Then every year in April we have our annual meeting, and that's legislated. It's required by the provincial government because we're provincially regulated. So every year in April we have an AGM, which since COVID's really changed the way we do business, but since 2020 we've been doing the AGMs virtually. And I think people are generally very comfortable with that these days. So we have an AGM. Again, any member who would like to attend the AGM, there's a registration period over a couple of weeks. You just go in and register. We send you the link. You attend the meeting, and then you can vote on any decisions that come before the membership at the AGM. So it might be any number of things. Obviously, there's the election piece will be done, as we do that prior to the AGM, and the new board members are announced at the AGM. But any business at hand that needs to be discussed that requires a membership vote, you get to vote at the AGM. And when we went through the amalgamation with Atlantic Edge back in 2024, we actually had to have a special membership meeting because the members had to approve that. We couldn't just go and say, we're going to amalgamate with Atlantic Edge. That's a member decision, right? That's pretty monumental. So we had to have a special membership meeting, invite all of our members, and we had a membership vote, and all of our members in attendance voted in favor, and here we are. So so you get to vote on any business changing, like if there's anything of significance, they'll come forward at the AGM, or there might be a special membership meeting if it is warranted, if it's something that wouldn't necessarily want to wait till next April.
Thank you. I'm just going to repeat the question for Tim because you did a great job of answering locally. But just in terms of credit unions in general, the question was who is on the board and what are they voting on? And I kind of had a follow-up question to that, which is how, in addition to voting and to being eligible to run, as you say, which I'm assuming is the case for most credit unions, how, say we want to have our membership be used in our community in a certain way. Is that the process to go through to make that happen? How do we become involved within our community through this system? I'm just going to put the question to Tim first. So
Sure.
I don't know if that's clear enough for you to answer, to speak on.
It is. I would just say, trust the credit union staff to do those jobs. You know what I mean? I think that, I love community involvement and engagement, but some things are better left to staff, is kind of my opinion. And so, in terms of things like granting, credit unions are amazing for supporting local charities, nonprofits, giving out grants to really cool things. There are some credit unions that have some really cool, programs, small business loans for entrepreneurs. I benefited from something called a Catapult Loan Fund, that when I started my business, it was about 2016, 2017, I did a rebrand of my company, and I kind of got my certified financial planning designation. And you know, to do a rebrand and to pay a designer, to have a new website, to do all the things, you know, it wasn't cheap. And it was a credit union that you know, had a program to support social entrepreneurs that gave me that loan as well to be able to do that. So you know, to me, it's like you know, credit unions are going to have that community involvement. Really, as a member, you know, certainly you can make suggestions and you can, you know, participate at a lower level, but really, like in terms of rights, it really is about voting at the AGM. The biggest vote, I rarely see any other resolutions other than voting for people to be on the board. I've got a friend who's sat on the board of a credit union here in Ontario and has done a great job. He's been amazing. It's been a great experience for him. And you know, it's certainly been a way for him to really participate in the community. So would very much encourage folks to get involved. You know, that said, it's not like, I just want to temper expectations here that, you know, it's not, you're not going to be voting on specific grants or community engagement activities or things like that. Yeah, that it is very much about getting the right people on the board of directors. And that should be the main goal, is having people who do have financial knowledge and expertise on the business side of things. But then I think it's so critical to actually have people on board as well, who are members, who are, you know, have more sort of everyday experience and are really making sure that they are looking out for those sort of lay members.
We have, and again, I'll just touch on that a little bit on the community piece, but it's funny, the timing, because this morning, we had every Thursday morning we do an all-staff meeting. We have 135 employees right now around the island and Labrador for Atlantic Edge. And every Thursday morning we have what we call See You Thursday. See You as in Credit Union Thursday. So we do that, we do it, all of our branches log in. And so today we talked about some of our community events and things that we have going on. And this time, we're doing it throughout the year, but this time of year we seem to kind of amp it up a little bit. So this morning we talked about our community grants. And so the deadline for businesses looking for, or I shouldn't say business, because it could be like an association or a club kind of deal as well. The deadline for submission for community grant applications was back in September. So this week we announced our community grants. And so there were 5 groups around our province that received $8,000 grants from us for different things that they're funding and different initiatives that are ongoing, that they're involved in. And just to give you an example, there's one group in one of our communities had and I don't remember the name, but I want to say it was Grand something. But anyway, it's a group where you're trying to get youth involved with seniors, okay? And so it's about companionship, and it's about a lot of things for seniors, you know, having conversations in company and that kind of thing, but it's also an opportunity for seniors to teach youth about our history, our culture, and those kinds of things. So they were one of our winners, okay? So there was 5 different groups around our province that obviously checks this week for $8,000, okay? So, you know, we have, and you don't have to be a member. These are groups and community organizations that are within our communities that we feel are making a difference. And they've applied to us for a grant to help fund some of their initiatives. This morning we talked about 350 winter coats that we just bought for children in different communities in our province. $18,000 we spent on winter coats for children in our province, and we do that every year in December. And so we have partners in communities, and they collect, because they know people, they will come to us and say, you know, we have 4 kids, we have 4 families, or 3 families, or whatever it is that are financially struggling, and we probably use winter coats for the kids. We go out, we get the size of, we buy $18,000 worth of coats. We have a pay it forward initiative that we do every year in December, and every year in December we give every one of our employees, which is now 135, plus our board members, $50 cash. And it's a pay it forward. And all we ask is that all of our people take the $50 and give it to a charity, make a donation, or if your neighbor you feel is, you know, struggling this year, maybe they haven't had the best year in the fishery, or maybe, you know, they have circumstances that's causing them to have a little bit more stress this Christmas than normal, and you would like to give your $50 to your neighbor, do that. But it's a pay it forward thing. So that's a two-piece thing. Every summer we do a loyal to local initiative where we give all of our staff and board members $50, and we encourage them to go out and spend it in a local business. I spend mine every year at Leicester Farms. I work for it because it kills me, big strawberries, but I buy $50 worth of strawberries at Leicester's every year in July, and it's a local thing. It's what we do. And so we do that every year in July and every year in December, but the December theme is a little bit different because we're asking everyone to share and to make a donation. It could be to the SPCA if that's what you are passionate about, but if you have a coworker or a neighbor or whoever who you feel could use some extra cash, do that.
Thank you so much, both of you. We are coming to the end. I see there's one more question there. Please go for it. We don't have a ton of time left, but please ask your question.
Yeah, not a question. I just wanted to say that a lot of the credit unions here are unionized. So there's like a democratic voice for the workers from the credit union, Ready Kilowatt, Public Service Credit Union. The Public Service Credit Union
Public
workers.
services unionized, but Ready Kilowatt.
Okay, so one of them at least is unionized, which I think is an important consideration when you're thinking about which credit union you would want to do business with, because it's great that members have a democratic voice in how the credit union operates, but it's also important for workers to have a democratic voice in the workplace, and the Public Service Credit Union is unionized here.
They are, and Community Credit Union in Marystown is also unionized. So of our 6 credit unions in the province, 2 of them are unionized. Yeah.
That's a great point. Thank you.
And the big banks aren't.
Yeah, exactly, and big banks are not. Great, thank you both. If we don't have any more questions, I just want to double check that was it for questions. Cool. I just want to give you guys both another minute if there was anything else you wanted to add. Tim, I just want to say we are definitely going to be linking you on our link tree so that folks can hear more about your work if they want, or get in contact with you directly if they want. Although you are located, is it Toronto where you're based out of?
Yep.
Right, okay, so that's good to know, but I'm guessing that you still work with people cross-country. That's great.
You got it.
Cool. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, just really wanted to encourage people to take the step of just joining a credit union, you know, especially if you can get like a no-fee checking account. There's really no downside in terms of opening up the account, starting through that process. You know, check it out. See, you know, make sure if you've got any doubts, you know, the best thing to do is you know, dip your toe in the water and become a member and start using it. And I'm fairly certain you'll find, like I did, that the experience is extremely similar to a bank, if not a heck of a lot better in a lot of different ways. So to me, it's one of these things where I think that oftentimes when it comes to being an activist, you know, we often do feel like we need to sacrifice, we need to sort of, you know, do things that are harder or more expensive or, you know, more challenging. We need to go without in some way, shape, or form. But we're just so lucky that when it comes to this issue, this is a great way for you to have a really big impact without sacrificing anything, and in fact actually benefiting from a better banking experience. So to me, this is one of those win-win-wins where, you know, it's going to be better for you, it's going to be better for your family, it's going to be better for society, it's going to be better for the planet, and, you know, really encourage people just to take that first step of sort of taking that pledge and opening up a checking account.
Yay, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. It means so much to us. We really, really appreciate it. Cynthia, was there anything else you wanted to say?
I'll just say quickly, I feel like some people don't do it because they think it's a lot. And some people are maybe a little intimidated by the process and you know, trying to kind of line things up so that it all works well and there's no issues. You know, Tim talked about keeping your account open for, you know, an extra few months just to make sure nothing gets missed or bill payments don't get missed or your CRA deposits land where they need to land. All true. So, but, you know, we've been doing this, some of us more longer than others, we've been doing this for a very, very long time, so we know the process, and we know we can coach you. It is not nearly as complicated or as intimidating as some people would think it is, or some people might tell you that it is. It's really not. We do it well, and we work with you. It might mean, you know, you're talking to us 3 or 4 times for the first couple months that you're doing, because we will walk you through the process, and we will assist you, keep you on track. We'll remind you of things. We will tell you when to close your account at the other F5. We will do all these things for you. So if you're okay with talking to us on a regular basis for a few months, we can help you through the process. It's really not that cumbersome at all. I do have business cards. If anyone wants to take my card and send me an email, if you think of other questions, you feel free to do that. And if you decide that you want to come by our branch to get more information, then I can connect you with the right person too. That's easy to do, and then you just decide. But you know, we're all about sharing the information. So our website, Atlantic Edge, ADCU.ca. You can go onto our website and you can read see our financial statements there from previous years, a list of our products and services, a whole bunch of information there. But if you want to send me an email with additional questions, I will be more than happy to respond to that as well. So if anyone wants business card, just see me at the end.
Awesome. Perfect. And before we sign off, I would just like to add that in my experience here in St. John's, we have such a supportive community within the activist space, and that a lot of us are already members of credit unions. So a lot of us are either in the process of making the switch or have already done it. So not only do you have support from your local credit unions and from the internet where there's so much information, but also we have support from within our own community. So this is definitely not something that you have to do on your own. So yes, I think that will end our evening. Tim, thanks again so much. You're amazing. Enjoy the rest of your night and good luck with everything. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Who knows?
Okay, bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Amazing. And thank you so much, Cynthia. We really appreciate you coming here.